You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. The Maryland Senate unanimously passed a measure for a $577 million settlement to end a long-running lawsuit involving the state's 4 HBCUs, Coppin State University, Morgan State University, Bowie State University, and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. On Friday, the Senate voted 47-0 on the bill. It will now go to the House of Delegates. Now, you remember, the bill passed last year, but Maryland Governor Larry Hogan vetoed it, saying they couldn't afford it. But he didn't veto the bill and provided funding for the racetrack in Baltimore. Now, in 2006, a lawsuit was filed that alleged Maryland underfunded its 4 HBCUs and also basically allowed white institutions in Maryland to duplicate programming at the HBCUs. Well, in 2013, a federal judge found the state violated the Constitution by maintaining a dual and segregated education system. Question is, will the governor veto it again, and will the legislature override his veto? Joining us right now is Delegate Charles Sydnor. Doc, how you doing?
Brother, how you doing? I'm doing well, thank you.
All right, so I have been covering this story for years. I've had the lead attorneys on, the lawyers committee. I've had Maryland delegates on. We had the rally last year at the state capitol in Annapolis pushing this, galvanizing Black Greeks and others. And so do you think this is finally the year that this is going to not only get passed, but if Hogan vetoes it again, then all of a sudden that we're going to be able to have this bill get come into law and the schools get that money?
You know, this is the year. I will tell you that in sponsoring Senate Bill 1 and Speaker Jones sponsoring HB 1, we're going to do this. Last week, when the Senate voted, as you noted, 47-0, I believe that sent a very strong message that the governor cannot ignore. You're talking about a bipartisan vote that the Senate had, and I mean it was amazing. Honestly, going into this session, I did not think that we would get another unanimous vote because I saw some of those same arguments being played out in the paper, and we just thought that some of our colleagues might get behind the governor's response and not be supportive this year. Thankfully, that's not what happened.
What people don't realize is that this has been a problem of Democratic governors and Republican governors. This is not partisan at all. This has been about restoration and what's fair. Hogan drew a line saying, what was it, tops 100 million, nothing more. But even during the lawsuit, during the trial, an expert testified that really the number should have been $2 billion for these HBCUs. And so because of how they were impacted by duplication. And so what he was talking about was 100 million over 10 years shared by 4 HBCUs.
Correct.
Really, dude? Really? That's 2.5 million a year for each college.
And you know, I think that number, that $1 to $2 billion number that came out in the lawsuit, really helped us to make the argument to some of the colleagues that, look, we're facing a $1 to $2 billion remedy, when in fact, if we just pay $577 over the course of 10 years, we can get this done. I mean, it's a deal, and they agreed. I mean, and one thing that I learned last year after that vote was that you can't take any votes for granted. I mean, so I made certain to talk with our Republican colleagues for support, and they did it again. So I was extremely happy about that.
Well, look, I'm glad it passed the Senate. We're waiting on the House. And again, if Governor Hogan and that Lieutenant Governor is Rutherford, Boyd Rutherford, HBCU graduate, who had the audacity to challenge me there was an awards ceremony for the Minority Supplier Development Agency there in Maryland, telling me I didn't have my facts together. I was like, well, fine, bring your behind on my show. He didn't want to come on the show. I think it's a shame that he has not been a more forceful advocate for HBCUs, considering he graduated from one in Howard University.
Understand. But I'll tell you this. So the Senate bill, it is now in the House in appropriations. HB1 passed appropriations, and I believe it's going to second reader onto the House floor. So it's moving in the right direction. And one of the things that you had noted earlier or questioned, once we get this passed, if the governor does try to veto it again, we're doing this early enough in the session that we won't need a special session to override this veto.
There you go. All right, then. Delegate Sydnor, I certainly appreciate it. Keep me abreast of what happens.
Will do. Thank you, brother.
Thanks a bunch. Appreciate it. This right here, Avis, is what I'm talking about when I say Black Power. Maryland has the largest Black caucus of any state in America. One of the things that I said last year when this was going on, I said to them, y'all whole deal should be, ain't a damn thing moving through the Maryland legislature unless we deal with this. I said, y'all should shut down everything. The reality is this here. The Congressional Black Caucus could do the exact same thing in D.C. Mm-hmm. The CBC has the largest caucus out of any on the Democratic side. If the CBC says we ain't for it, it ain't moving. I'm glad to see, and that's why this is called HB1. It's the first bill. It's the first bill, and I'm glad they've seen them doing it. And I think, look, they're going to override. If Hogan vetoes it, they got the votes to override it, and then those Black colleges are going to get that $577 million.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, this is what Black Power looks like. This is why voting matters. This is why voting blocks are important. And so here's the thing, exactly as you've alluded to, we've really got to get to the point of political maturity where we are willing to play hardball. I'm as willing as the next person to, quote unquote, trying to reason with people to an extent that it makes sense. But when you're acting like you don't have sense, then that's the end for the reasoning. That's when the reasoning needs to come to an end. And that's when you need to exert power. And so I'm really glad that it looks like they are actually doing this here, because this is a bill and is a debt that is long overdue. And it's about time that it finally gets paid.
Again, putting that pressure on is critically important. And one of the things that we did, Julian, you, of course, President Emerita of Bennett College, when we were last year, when this came up, I sent text messages and emails to every Black fraternity and sorority saying, yo, get your members, putting pressure on folk. I said, they need to feel the heat. They need to feel every single chapter. They need to feel every single one of these graduates. This is where one of the things that I have been saying when I talk about this Black economic justice is that we have significant Black institutions with numbers. We can rattle off organizations. The problem is that our Black organizations are so insular that they are not using their power to flex and press folks externally. I said, so if Alpha is only concerned about the walls of Alpha, if Deltas are only concerned about the walls of Delta, if the Sigmas and the Sigma Gamma Rho and Zetas and Iotas and Omegas and Kappas and AKAs, and then the Links, the Guardsmen, the Girlfriends, the Boule, then we start talking about the Kojic, the AME, the CME. We got all these, the Prince Hall Masons, Eastern Star. We got all these groups. I'm arguing they have got to be able to use their power to send a letter to the governor saying, you better move on this, or guess what? We're going to drop 1,000 Masons on the state capitol. We're going to drop 1,000 Deltas, 1,000 AKAs. So I'm like, what's the point of having all of these organizations if we're not using them to advance the interests of Black people?
Roland, I couldn't agree with you more. I do think that some of our organizations are not insular, that we do, I speak for my sorority, we do reach outside our walls. When I was president at Bennett College, the Delta chapters in North Carolina were extraordinarily helpful. There was a couple pieces of legislation that they really weighed in on that we were able to deal with. And I know that the other sororities and fraternities do the same thing. But it's not enough. Here's the deal. Historically, Black colleges and universities have been systematically underfunded. When you look at a University of Maryland and you look at a Morgan State, where our brother president there is doing such an amazing job, graduating more Black women with PhDs in engineering than any place else. So, you look at that and you look at the results, but you don't see the investment. So our presidents are running from pillar to post to try to raise outside money because the state does not value HBCUs. The $570 million, it's okay. It's okay. The billion to $2 billion that is truly owed would be better. But it's an opportunity for folks to build their endowments, to increase their scholarships, to attract good faculty, new faculty and good faculty. So I'm excited about it. And if Larry Hogan has a temerity to veto this, if he has a nerve to veto this, I hope that folks stomp all over his behind. I had to just stop there. I don't cuss as much as you do. Or I do.
Yeah, right.
But in any case, I mean, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And he wants to put himself out there as this bipartisan thing who wants to be president, and you can't support HBCUs? Get your hat, Maryland farmer, and go somewhere. He had better not veto that. And if he does, I hope that the whole big old feet of everybody in Maryland stomp on his hind part.
Well, that's why you're making a big issue, Ben, because the reality is Boyd Rutherford plans on running for governor during the next election. And I'm sorry, if you couldn't stand with Maryland's HBCUs for the full amount of money, you don't deserve anybody Black voting for you.
Yeah,
Roland, I mean, that's the truth. And I think that's the vantage point that we have to come from going forward. America has been saved by Black people time and time and again, right? Not just on the federal level, but on the state level. And for them to even consider, first of all, it's woefully insufficient, but it is something. And so if they're even considering vetoing this, I think Black folks, we just really need to bring the full force of Black power down on every level of this government, because they literally cannot obtain power without Black people.
So, again, y'all, to everybody watching, you watching me on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, y'all going to hear me saying this a whole lot. How you use collective action to be able to move things in our community. When we start talking about dollars, when we start talking about pension funds, we start talking about advertising dollars. I'm going to tell you right now, that's how it can get done. The model is there. King laid it out in Operation Breadbasket. Reverend Leon Sullivan gave it to him, and before it became Operation Breadbasket. So we've done these things before. We've simply got to have folks who are willing to actually put their neck on the line, and they're not even really putting their neck on the line. It's just doing what's right, because this is about actually Black people. Every single night, we've got some of the top Black experts. You're not going to see them on cable news or broadcast news, because you swear Black people aren't experts when it comes to this health crisis. That's why we have this show and why we do what we do every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Joining us right now is retired General Russell Honore, the nation's first Black Surgeon General, Dr. Joycelyn Elders. John Hope Bryant, he is the founder of Operation Hope. Senator Kamala Harris of California, Dr. Cedrina Calder, retired General Lloyd Austin, Congresswoman Karen Bass, Commissioner Omari Hardick, Bureau President in Brooklyn, Eric Adams, Dr. Joseph Graves, America's Wealth Coach, Deborah Owens, Dr. Corey Hebert, Patel Saul, Howard University student, Pastor Jamal Bryant, Dr. Christy McDowell, Benja Ajilore, senior economist at the Center for American Progress, Gilda Daniels, again, author of the book, The Crisis of Voter Suppression. in America. 4 stars, General Kip Ward. Dr. Oliver Brooks is president of the National Medical Association, president of the American Medical Association, Dr. Patrice Harris. Joby Benjamin. Dr. Alexia Gaffney, infectious disease specialist. Dr. Georges Benjamin, executive director of the American Public Health Association. Malcolm Nance, family medicine physician, Dr. Jen Cardle. Dr. Tashaka Cunningham, a molecular biologist. Kat Stafford, she's a national race and ethnicity reporter for the Associated Press. Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, who is the president of Howard University. Congresswoman Yvette Clarke from the state of New York. William Spriggs, AFL-CIO economist. Andrea James, executive director of the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. All right, let's go to Capitol Hill. Congressman Gregory Meeks, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson of Texas, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, mental health clinician Jamie Singletary, Prince George's County State's Attorney Aisha Brayboy, as well as Dylan Hayrie, ACLU Justice Division strategist. Dr. Cindy Duke, she is a virologist. Principal Steve Perry of Capitol Prep. Health and wellness specialist Dr. Yolandra Hancock. Desmond Meade, president of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. Cliff Albright, who is the co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Michael Harriet with The Root. Mina McWhorter, founder of Love by the Hand. Dr. Julianne Malveaux, economist, president, Emerita Bennett College. Coroner Michael Fowler is the mayor of Atlanta. Keisha Lance Bottoms, mental health therapist Suzette Clark. Justin Gibney, attorney and political strategist, and Bishop Vincent Matthews Jr. Dr. Suzette McKinney, CEO and executive director of the Illinois Medical District. Dr. Leon McDougall, president-elect of the National Medical Association. Jana Bailey, mayor of Moss Point, Mississippi. Mario King. We're going to keep driving this thing to make sure our people are fully aware, safe, protected from coronavirus. You're getting the top medical experts, the top business experts, top political experts, top religious experts, because that's why we do what we do. Unapologetically and unfiltered. Ain't nobody else in the black media space doing what we do. Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.